In this episode of the Locked On NBA Big Board Podcast, it is part 2 of the Weekend Watchlist. In part 1, we covered VJ Edgecombe and Baylor going against Arkansas. We talked about Derek Queen. We talked about the BYU freshman and also which prospect that we think is going to emerge as the best NBA prospect in the Kansas and North Carolina game, a matchup of two blue blood schools. But in this episode, in part 2, we're going to start off talking about Tre Johnson. We're also going to cover Collin Murray-Boyles and a few more. Stay tuned. Big shout out to each and every person that has made the Locked On NBA Big Board Podcast your first listen of the day. And in this case, it could be your second listen of the day because this is our second episode. And this episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. So download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA. You can win $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. And also I want to mention Locked On has a newsletter that covers your favorite team. So whatever team you support, there is a Locked On newsletter that is the one stop for ultimate team and league coverage. And it is delivered right to your inbox. So sign up for free at lockedondaily.com. That's lockedondaily.com to start your day with the all new and free Locked On newsletter covering your favorite team. And if you are not subscribed to the YouTube channel, please subscribe, like, share, comment, click the bell so you can be notified every time we drop an episode, because this is our second episode of the day. It might not even be the last episode of the day, but we're coming at you at least 5 days a week, and we are your source for NBA draft content, and we're covering the rookies. And we're also covering the draft, not only college players, but all over the world. All right, James, second episode of the day. Who is, or is it a player or a team that you are going to be watching or closely monitoring this weekend as we open the first weekend of college basketball?
Listen, Raf, you've known it for some years. I'm a big Tre Johnson fan. Buyer of his talent, believer of his skill set. First game against Ohio State, he had 29 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. I guess you could say they catch a break here. Not necessarily a break. I mean, I don't want to disrespect anyone playing Division I basketball, but they got Houston Christian coming up, right? Texas is a big favorite. I expect Tre Johnson to continue to be great, but I want to see him get to the basket. This is a lesser opponent. So you have a physical advantage, and you are expected to dominate. So that's what I want to see Tre Johnson do. I'm not saying he didn't dominate against Ohio State, but I want to see him take it up a level as a potential top 5 pick should do against a small college, small mid-major school like Houston Christian. So that's what I want to see from him.
You want to hear something funny?
Say that again.
Hear something funny?
Yeah.
I've lived in Texas for 20 years, and I've never heard of Houston Christian until this weekend, until today. And I didn't realize that Houston Christian used to be Houston Baptist. I heard of Houston Baptist.
Yeah, I heard of Houston Baptist.
But I was like, Houston Christian?
Man, I was like, why are we playing D2s, man?
NAIA. I had no idea. But no, Tre I thought he had a good game against Ohio State. I'm not surprised. I mean, I've seen the shot making. I feel like Tre's a guy that if you haven't watched him play over the years, you look at some of the shots that he was taking and making, and they look like bad shots. But those are shots that he has made look easy since he was in, to my knowledge, 10th grade.
10th grade.
He is a tough shot taker, tough shot maker, and he's a very underrated passer. So what I'm looking forward to seeing out of Tre Johnson this game is, can he continue to score, which I think he will, but can he show more playmaking flashes? Because all you heard about was his scoring, but nobody was talking about that he distributed the ball.
I was talking about it.
I'm looking forward to seeing what Tre Johnson does, and I think this is a game where you can play him at point guard and put him in a bunch of pick and rolls. So that's what I'm hoping to see. All right, let's switch up to Collin Murray-Boyles. Now, I'll be the first to admit I am not as high on Collin Murray-Boyles as the consensus. I'm not high on him as an NBA prospect, but I'm very high on him as a college basketball player. There's a difference. I guess one of the reasons why I'm not as high on him as an NBA prospect is because I just don't know how his game translates. But on the college level, he is going to be dominant. And on his first game, he had 17 points, 7 rebounds, and 1 assist. But they lost.
And he shot 6 of 15 against North Florida. That's the same North Florida. That's where Chaz Lanier was at last year, right?
Yeah.
He wasn't there. He wasn't there a couple of days ago. So
no, and the concerns about his touch outside of the paint. Inside the paint, I mean, he's got good touch, but he was just 3 of 6 from the foul line and 7 of 16 from the floor. South Carolina came into the season with some buzz. I actually heard some people say between Murray-Boyles and Cam Scott that they could be a team that can make a deep run in the NCAA tournament. Now, one game doesn't change that, but what I wanted to see out of Murray-Boyles was, is he going to show more game outside of the paint? That was one of my concerns. And so I'm curious to see, maybe against who they have coming up this weekend, maybe he can mix in a jumper or two, but it's kind of a slippery slope in a sense because a lot of people see him as the top returning prospect in college basketball. Mm-hmm. And he was good last year without making, I think he made 1 jump shot. So does he come back to school and show NBA scouts that I can score outside of the paint, or does he continue to just dominate the way that he, I guess dominate is a strong word, but play the way that he played that made a lot of people believe that he is the top returning prospect?
Well, they got South Carolina State. That's a MEAC school. He has every physical advantage in the world against them. Shout out to South Carolina State. But this should be a bounce back game and an opportunity to show that I have worked on my jump shot, or at least show me better playmaking. I know that the assists, I mean, all you can do most of the time is just pass the ball to guys. If they're not making shots, then you can't do anything about that. But he's got a MEAC school coming up. I believe they have Townsend for game 3. And then they got Indiana. So he's got 2 tune-up games to figure out, to improve, to show scouts what they need to see, or just continue to, be productive. But that game against Indiana, that's a potential NBA player they have in McKenzie and Bako there. So, but yeah, they got you schedule these kind of teams to figure stuff out. But I think that's what they thought they did the first game of the season with North Florida. So we'll see how it works out for Collin Murray-Boyles.
Yeah, I mean, North Florida isn't like a pushover. I mean, they didn't play like, Houston Christian or a school that I never heard of. But my mindset, if I'm Murray-Boyles coming into that game, is I'm going to punish them early. I'm going to do what I do. I'm going to get my points on the block early. And then once we get a comfortable lead, I'm going to use this as like a way to showcase that I can score outside of the paint. Again, you can't make it all about you, but I do think that this would be a perfect opportunity to at least mix in some elbow jumpers, short corner jumpers, or something like that.
Yeah, I agree. Or if nothing else, grab the rebound and go and make a play. Turn something into a DHO. Like, it's not – you can do stuff like that without the coach being like, hey, man, what are you doing, man? I see what you're trying to do. Like, grab the rebound, push up the court, make a play. Because, again, he can pass. He does rebound at a high level. But I think he's got to be thinking, how can I be like on some Draymond Green type stuff? No, I don't need to go out here and shoot 3 threes or 5 threes a game. I do need to show that I'm an improved shooter. But there are other things that you can show because you are productive and you do have a buzz from last year.
Yeah, and the reason I think that he really needs to show that he can space the floor is because he's like 6'7", 245. Yeah. I think that's what they had him listed at. All right, when we return, we're going to talk about Michigan and Wake Forest, an underrated game for the weekend. I want to talk about Danny Wolf, who had 19 points and 13 rebounds on 80% shooting in his first game. And then we're going to talk about Hunter Sallis, who has been moved to point guard full time. So I want to hear James's thoughts on how that could impact Sallis's draft range. Stay tuned. But before we get into the second segment, let's talk about Prize Picks. I know James is a huge huge Prize Picks fan. And with Prize Picks, you can now win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports, and it's in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. And Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform that has an insurance policy. So your lineups stay in play. Even if one of your players gets injured and he leaves the game in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks will keep your lineup. And Prize Picks is also the best place to get real money on sports action. You can join over 10 million users and sign up today. Prize Picks also invented Flex Play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. And what I really like about Prize Picks is that it now offers Venmo for quick and easy deposits and withdrawals into your accounts this season. So go to prizepicks.com. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, you can get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Get ready to tackle NFL action with FanDuel, which happens to be America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, and it is all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more. And it is on the same page where you place your bets. So visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. All right, second segment. Michigan and Wake Forest is a game that I'm going to be watching. One of the guys that I really want to check out is Danny Wolf. He made a name for himself at Yale. I know that he had a pretty good tournament. I want to say it was like the under-20s last summer, representing Israel. Transferred to Michigan State. I'm sorry. That was a mistake.
Hey, man, you got to relax.
I don't want to get Michigan and Michigan
That's
State
not confusing. Confused. That's not confusing Houston Baptist and Houston Christian. Like, no, it's different.
My bad. But a friend of mine attended a Michigan practice probably about a month ago, and he sends me a text and he says, Danny Wolf is a first-round pick.
Hey, you know what's crazy? Before you tell that story, we did, myself and Leaf, I believe, we did a preview of during the tournament last year. And I was like, yo, Yale has a gentleman named Danny Wolf that has an opportunity to play like he can hoop. He's a professional basketball player. And somebody in the comments like, man, I'm not trying to see nobody from Yale play. And then when Danny Wolf transferred to Michigan, because he and my dog Malik Mack, they transferred from Ivy League schools to go play basketball at Power 5 schools. And it's like, why would you leave a Yale education? Why would you leave a Harvard education? If Danny Wolf is a first-round pick, who from Yale is telling him not to make that move? You know what I'm saying? Like, the payoff is there. He has the talent. 7 foot. He's an athlete, and he can shoot. Like, he's legit good. I really want to see this game.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on Hunter Sallis being moved to the point guard? And I'm preaching to the choir talking to you, but I thought Hunter Sallis was a first-round pick last year. One of my questions coming into this year is, what more does he need to show NBA scouts? He was efficient from three, was efficient from the floor. You can make a case and say he had 2 of the best performances of college basketball last season against Duke. I don't remember the numbers, but it was like 12 of 15 from the floor for 29 points or something like that. I think he scored 33 against NC State. And I just thought he had a really excellent bounce back year after having 2 struggle years at Gonzaga. Comes back to Wake Forest. They're putting him more on the ball. And the results have been somewhat mixed, at least statistically, in his first 2 games. They had a game last night, so it is a quick turnaround for them. But overall, for the season, and it's just 2 games, and it is very early, Hunter's averaging 12 points, 3 rebounds, and 4 assists. The assist numbers are up from last year, but right now, just through two games, he's only shooting 35% from the floor and he is only 1 of 9 from 3. So I'm looking forward to seeing if Hunter can have a bounce back game against their first real test of the season.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with him playing point guard full time. I'm not saying that he's the same type of player as they are, but Steph came back a year to prove that he could play point guard. I believe CJ McCollum came back a year to prove that he could play point guard. So it could work for him. My biggest concern with the move that he made to come back to school is because one of his biggest knocks, especially his first 2 seasons at Gonzaga, was the 3 ball. And then he turns it around and he shoots the ball extremely well at Wake Forest. And these just weren't catch and shoot threes. These are off dribble threes, pick and roll threes. He shoots step back threes. If that number drops, then I think people look at him differently, because then it's like, oh, you only shot the ball well 1 year. Like, can you continue to shoot the ball well? So it's a gamble that he took. I hope the gamble pays off, but I don't necessarily think him playing point guard, it will boost his stock because it's a bonus. I do think he's a ball handler at the next level, but maybe he shows that he can like really be a ball handler at the next level by playing point guard this year.
Well, one, I feel like if you have one outlier year shooting the ball, it better be your last year. It has to be that last year. And he shot 40% from 3 last year. So that was my concern. Like, what does he have to do? I mean, 48, 40, 78 shooting splits and averaging 18 points a game. Like, I'll just put it like this. I thought those numbers were good enough to leave. And I feel like if you
especially in that draft,
especially last year's draft, but if you come back as a senior, I think you have to absolutely dominate. Not be really good. You have to dominate, because you look at guys that were seniors that were drafted had really big years. Even if you look at the guys that were like juniors last year, from Jalen Tyson to Dalton Connect to Zach Edey, Devin Carter. Really, really big years. And I thought Hunter had a year similar to those guys, but now that he comes back, he's going to have to even be better than what he was. So hopefully he bounces back. All right, when we return, there's 2 more prospects that I want to talk about. One is a player that I am leading the charge, or I am driving the bandwagon for, James Scott, player that you probably haven't heard of. And then Garwey Dual, a guy that James is really high on. I was high on last year. I kind of fell off of him. James still remained high on him. So James has a question. Stay tuned. All right, before we get into the last segment, I want to talk about our new sponsor, which is Skims. Now, I first heard of Skims because of Kim Kardashian. And I mentioned in previous episodes that I didn't know Skims made anything for men until they had a rollout during March Madness. So I went online and I checked some of the reviews. So I'm going to read a review from a person that has bought Skims. This is a review. In high school, I was a boxer's guy. In college, I switched to boxer briefs, but until now, I've never been a briefs guy before. Once I tried Skims, I don't think there's any going back. They're sleek, they're lightweight, and super comfortable. It almost feels like you're wearing nothing at all, but I'm kept fully secure when it matters the most. Trust me, when it comes to underwear, I've now tried them all, and Skims is the best to do it. Now, that is a real review. So if you want to feel like you're free balling, you got to check out Skims. Go to skims.com for men. Let them know that we sent you. After you place your order, select podcast in the survey and select our show in the drop-down menu that follows. And if you are looking for the perfect gift for the whole family, Skims just launched their biggest holiday shop ever, which is also at skims.com. All right, last segment, James Scott, a player that you've probably never heard of. And I've talked to NBA teams and different agents, and I'm saying James Scott is a name that you need to be familiar with. I wrote about him in my NBA Big Board article that I wrote probably last week, and I listed him as a vertical lob threat to pay attention to, because I just think that vertical lob threats, or guys that can space the floor vertically, are so valuable in today's NBA, especially if you have a playmaker. And James Scott is to me one of the more intriguing long-term prospects. Didn't have great numbers last year at College of Charleston, but he was like the fourth youngest player in the country. But he's like your 6'10", 6'11" athlete that can run the floor, that can catch lobs, protect the rim. He was in like the top 25 in total dunks last year, and he only played like 16 minutes a game, and he shot 79% from the floor for the whole season. So he ends up going to Louisville, however you pronounce that. I've always said Louisville, but there's a way Louisville, whatever. But anyway,
you gotta be from Kentucky to talk like that.
You got to be or Indiana.
Or
and
Indiana.
So he followed the coach from College of Charleston to Louisville, and in his first game, he had 12 points, 6 of 8 from the floor. I'm looking forward to seeing him against Tennessee because I think he is one of the sleeper prospects that nobody's heard of or is talking about that I think could emerge as an NBA prospect. However, I'm explaining to you why I think he's more than just a rim runner and vertical lob threat and rim protector. He is a sneaky good passer, had more assists and turnovers. Think about it. How many bigs as freshmen?
Guards?
Right. But bigs as freshmen that are only 17 years old can post a positive assist to turnover ratio. He reminds me a little bit of Derek Lively. Derek Lively had a positive assist to turnover ratio at Duke his freshman year. And you see with Dallas the flashes of passing because as a person that lives in Dallas and that goes to pretty much almost every Mav game, when Luka is trapped and they would give the ball to Dwight Powell in the middle of the floor, he didn't know what to do with it. Gafford doesn't always know what to do with it. But Lively shows some flashes of being able to make some reads and swing it to the corner and make plays in the middle of the floor. And James Scott has shown some flashes of being able to do that. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he does against Tennessee. He had a pretty decent game against Alabama in the NCAA tournament, again, as a 17-year-old. So I'm thinking that this could be one of the breakout games for James Scott as Louisville faces Tennessee.
Yeah, I got to tune in. I haven't had a chance to see him yet. I mean, you talk him up. So, I guess you're my brother. I guess I got to listen to you. But I want to see him play. I want to see what the hype is about. But I also want to see Chaz Lanier, a.k.a. homeless man's Gilbert Arenas.
I don't see that. I don't see Gilbert Arenas.
I'm not talking about the physical tools, but like Gilbert Arenas was going left every single time. Deep three. He just kind of reminded me of Gilbert Arenas at North Florida. I want to see Chaz Lanier. I think Chaz Lanier is an NBA player. So yeah, this is a good matchup. Scouts should be there. They should listen to you. You've been right a few times in your life. So let's see if you're right again about James Scott. And I also want to know if he continues to develop and he is an NBA player, how does a 6'11", 17-year-old end up with athleticism, end up at College of Charleston? Like, I want to know the backstory. Did he commit early? Was he a late bloomer? Did he grow like 8 inches overnight like we hear about some of these kids doing? That's what I want to find out.
Well, I was digging through the trenches looking for these 3-star guys that can pop out and emerge. Again, I don't know how a 6'11" athlete falls under the radar, but the coach clearly likes him because he brought him with him. He brought him with him, and then maybe the coach got on him early, but he is, again, he's one of my favorite players. My favorite stat is 79% from the floor, and 52 of his 76 shots last year were dunks.
I like it. Mess with it.
1.3 blocks per game in 16 minutes. All right. Garwey Dual. I know you got a question. You want to know, is he a legit NBA prospect? The floor is yours, brother.
Man, listen. He looked like he had an opportunity. I think he had an opportunity at Providence last year. Best player goes down, but the person that took advantage of that opportunity was Devin Carter.
Yeah.
Devin Carter took the food, turned it into being a lottery pick. He hasn't played yet, but he was drafted by the Sacramento Kings. Garwey Dual, he leaves, he goes to Seton Hall. He's about a 6'4", 6'5". He's legit playing point guard. He's got wingspan for days. He's got handles, athleticism. He's got craft. he can't shoot. And he, even yesterday, or not yesterday, but the last game, he played 29 minutes. He scored 2 points.
Only took 4 shots.
He took 4 shots. And those 2 points, Ralph, came on a fast break dunk. And I was in the first half. So even with all those tools, talent, creativity, he can pass. He can't shoot. And he looked like he bulked up. I don't know if that's the good bulk up because he looked kind of heavy, but he bulked up. Yeah, man, I want to know if he's an NBA player. And I need to see some more from him. And again, it's one game. I get it. But they were in the – it wasn't like, it was a blowout and, I didn't get my numbers. Like, nah, this was a close game. This came down to the wire. And he didn't show me NBA player in that game. So I have questions, man.
And he had 5 assists, but 4 turnovers. He had 3 steals. The appeal for him was 6'5", athletic, shot creator that can pass, that can play on or off the ball. I knew he was raw. I just thought he would show some flashes last year. And like I said about Hunter Sallis, in a sense, the longer you stay in school, the flashes don't count.
They're not flashing no more.
You have to show dominance in a sense, especially as if you're a junior or a senior. And one game, don't want to overreact, but we have a pretty decent sample size of 34 career games of him not being able to shoot. That's scary. That's scary. So hopefully he turns it around. But he is a player that not only this weekend, but all season, I'm going to be monitoring him because I was high on him. I had him as a first-round pick on my big board 1.0 coming into his freshman year. I thought, all right, maybe change of scenery, took time to adjust, too skinny, that this was going to be the breakout year.
Though, right?
That's what I'm saying. Like, that this was going to be the breakout year because I couldn't use him being skinny as a reason why he was so inefficient. And then it's like it's almost it's a double whammy. If you can't shoot and you're too thin to really finish in the paint, how are you going to score? So this year, I mean, it's only a sophomore. It's not the end of the road, but I definitely want to monitor how well he plays because other than you, I was probably as high on him than anybody else.
Can't be messing up the brand, man.
Well, that wraps up this episode of the Locked On NBA Big Board Podcast. This is Weekend Watch Part 2, where we shared our thoughts on some players and teams that we are going to be following closely this weekend. I want to remind you that your favorite podcast now has a newsletter. So whichever podcast you listen to on the Locked On Network now has a daily newsletter. So sign up for free at lockedondaily.com and you can get the newsletter in your inbox daily. Once again, it's Rafael Barlowe with my brother James, and we are out of here.